What I found as a professional stepping into the workplace in my early 20s was this question: what does it mean to be a queer man? What does it mean to be a professional in this space? And what does that look like? At the beginning, what I found, even though I didn't have the language for it at the time, was that I was covering. I was afraid that to be too gay, to be too feminine, to present with long hair and in makeup and jewelry and in more feminine clothing, people may not work with us. They may not fund us. Communities may not partner with us. What is covering? This is my definition. Downplaying, hiding, or filtering parts of ourselves at work, with different social groups, at school, and with family. And so you may be familiar with the term code switching. Code switching would fall under the broader covering umbrella. Covering was one of these topics where, through their report, they interviewed over 3,000 corporate professionals, and they found that across all groups, straight white men, women of color, LGBTQ folks, people with disabilities, veterans, people of different religions, covering was present. Why do we cover? I mentioned a little bit of that as I was talking about the reasons that I covered as a professional, but there's a lot of different reasons. Safety and self-protection, fear of being fired. I mentioned the cultural norms. They may be of groups we interact with outside of work, right? There's a lot of different mental models and mindsets of how we show up and what is acceptable, and those impact the parts of ourselves that we bring with us on a daily basis into these interactions. It can be limiting mental models. It can also be stereotypes about groups. There's a stereotype that exists. Maybe we don't want to be associated with that group, even though that's a core part of who we are. And so as I've been interviewing people over the past few years around the experience of covering, we've heard about how people of color related to age. They didn't mention their grandkids because they didn't want to be viewed as old and dispensable. They didn't mention things they did as a younger professional because they wanted to be considered more experienced. During a conference in the fall, where he was a straight white man, and he said, "I've never heard of the topic of covering, but I cover all the time. And I've never thought about it in this way before." Another woman who was a political leader, she said, "I can't imagine being able to uncover who I am and being in politics." And some of the examples I've heard from people as you're sharing are lonely, isolated, stressed, depressed, and exhausted. And those are just a few of the ways that people can experience covering based on how it's impacting them in that part of their life. Whose imagination are we working in? Who imagined the corporate structure or the organizational structure or the team structure that you're working in? And does it still serve us? Does it serve us now?
For HR, this is one of the most important topics of the day.
I want to thank you for your presentation. It was fabulous. And there's a tremendous loss of productivity and interconnectivity if people have to cover.
Black workers wanting to stay at home, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I've been now remote going on 3 years, and I'm the most comfortable I've ever been in my role. And I think, the success has kind of been there in my productivity, but I never equated that to uncovering.